She squeezed the bottle. Warm water rushed through her sinuses and out the other nostril. It took 4 seconds. She had done it 1,000 times before. Her husband was brushing his teeth 2 feet away. He watched her fill the bottle from the RV faucet and said what he always said. "You should use distilled water for that, her doctor told you." Margaret Hollis laughed. "Jean, it is tap water. It is treated. Relax." 12 days later, she would be dead. Not from cancer, not from a stroke, from the water that came out of her own faucet. From a $9 squeeze bottle she bought at a drugstore. From a habit her husband questioned every single morning and she dismissed every single time. One of them was right, one of them was wrong. And by the time it mattered, it was already too late. This is BioCase. Jean Hollis had worried about the water from the day they bought the RV. He was a retired electrician. He understood pipes, and he understood what happens to water that sits in a tank in the dark without circulation. He asked the previous owner when the potable water tank was last flushed. The seller said he could not remember. Jean almost walked away from the deal. Margaret told him he was overthinking it. She said it was a good price, the interior was clean, and to stop looking for problems. He bought the RV. He did not flush the tank. Remember that. Remember who worried and who dismissed it, because only one of them is going to walk out of this story. They parked at a campground outside Temple, Texas in late summer. They hooked the municipal water line to the RV with a hose and a basic filter. Standard setup. Every campground in the country works the same way. Margaret had chronic sinus problems, allergies, cedar, dust. Her doctor told her years ago to use distilled water in her nasal rinse. She did for a while, then she stopped buying it because the tap was right there and distilled water meant a trip to the store. Every morning, same routine. Fill the bottle from the faucet, squeeze, rinse, done. Every morning, Jean said the same thing. "You should use distilled water." Every morning, Margaret gave the same answer. "It is just water. Relax." 4 mornings in a row, she delivered warm tap water directly into her nasal passages. 4 direct deliveries of contaminated water into the only passage that leads to the human brain. Here is what was living inside the pipes of that recreational vehicle. When water sits in a tank without circulation, without sunlight, the chlorine breaks down. What remains is warm, dark, stagnant liquid. Biofilm coats the interior walls, a slimy layer of organisms that bond together and form a shield. Inside that shield, things survive that chlorine would normally kill, including Naegleria fowleri, a free-living amoeba that has existed for 50 million years. It lives in warm, fresh water, in soil, in lakes, and in poorly maintained pipes. It does not need a host. It does not need to feed. It waits in biofilm, dormant, patient, until conditions are warm enough. Then it wakes up. Here is how it enters. The olfactory nerve connects the inside of your nose directly to the base of your brain. No bone, no barrier, no checkpoint. Just a thin membrane and a straight highway into the frontal lobe. Naegleria fowleri cannot hurt you through your stomach. Swallow it and nothing happens, but force it up the nose and you hand a 50-million-year-old predator the only key it needs. Here is how it kills. It does not poison you. It does not shut down organs. It eats. It releases enzymes that dissolve living brain tissue. Cell by cell, neuron by neuron. It liquefies the tissue, then absorbs the nutrients. Then it splits in half. Now there are 2. They eat, they split. Now there are 4, then 8, then hundreds. Each one dissolving everything it touches. Your immune system detects the invasion. White blood cells flood the area. Inflammation explodes, but the brain is trapped inside bone. It has nowhere to swell. Pressure builds. Tissue crushes against the skull, and the amoeba keeps eating. The immune response that is supposed to save you is what kills you fastest. On day 4 after that first rinse, Margaret woke up with a headache she called blinding. Not behind her eyes, behind her face, like something pressing outward from inside her skull. Jean handed her Tylenol. By afternoon, she was vomiting. He drove her to urgent care. Her temperature was 102. The doctor checked her ears, throat, and chest. Summer flu, he said. Maybe a sinus infection. He prescribed antibiotics. He told her to rest. Margaret asked, could it be something serious? The doctor smiled. At your age, we take everything seriously, but this looks like a bug. You will be fine in a few days. He did not ask if she used a nasal irrigation device. He did not ask what water she used. There is no box on the intake form for that. That question does not exist. A 71-year-old with a headache and a fever in Texas does not trigger a parasitic screening. Pay attention. This was the first chance to save her. It was missed. Day 5, 3 in the morning. Jean found Margaret sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, not blinking. Margaret, can you hear me? She turned slowly. Something is wrong with me, Jean. Her neck was rigid. She screamed when he tried to help her lie down. He called 911. The emergency room doctor recognized it immediately. Fever, neck stiffness, confusion, bacterial meningitis. They started intravenous antibiotics within the hour, ceftriaxone and vancomycin. They told Jean they caught it. He called their daughter in Waco. Mom is sick, but they are treating it. She is going to be okay. She was not going to be okay. The antibiotics were fighting something that was not there. The bacteria they were designed to kill did not exist inside her brain. And every hour, the real enemy multiplied. The drugs did nothing, and a little more of Margaret disappeared. Day 6. No improvement. She started talking to people who were not in the room. She called for her mother, who had been dead for 20 years. The antibiotics should have shown effect by now. They had not. Day 7. Margaret seized. Her body locked. Her eyes rolled back. Jean stood in the doorway and could not move. The CT showed her brain swelling against the skull. The neurosurgeon said a word Jean did not understand. Herniation. The infectious disease specialist sat down next to Jean. Does your wife use a nasal irrigation device? Yes, every morning. What water does she use? Jean went quiet. He said the tap from the RV. Her face changed. One question. The only question that mattered. And it took 3 doctors and 7 days to ask it. She ordered a wet mount of Margaret's cerebrospinal fluid, not looking for bacteria, looking for something alive. The technician placed the slide under the microscope. Bacteria would have been still. This was not still. Something was moving, not drifting, moving with direction, extending pseudopods, reaching, grabbing, feeding. Naegleria fowleri, the brain-eating amoeba. Since 1962, roughly 160 known cases in the United States. Fatality rate over 97%. The experimental drug miltefosine was requested from the CDC, but by day 7, the frontal lobe was destroyed. The inflammation had compressed the brainstem. Margaret Hollis died on day 8 after symptom onset, 12 days after that first squeeze of the bottle. You might be thinking this only happens in recreational vehicles. Old tanks, bad plumbing. You would be wrong. In 2011, a woman in Louisiana filled her neti pot with warm tap water from her own kitchen faucet. Not a recreational vehicle. Not a campground. Her house. A house she had lived in for decades. Municipal water, treated water, the same faucet she used to wash dishes, fill glasses, brush her teeth. The amoeba was not in the main supply. It was growing in the biofilm inside her household pipes, in the hot water heater that had been slowly accumulating sediment and losing disinfectant residual for years. She did not know. Nobody tested for it. Nobody thought to. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Same disease, same amoeba, same 3-inch highway from nose to brain, same doctors who did not think to ask about water. That case changed the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines forever. They now recommend using only distilled, boiled, or sterile water for nasal irrigation. But here is the problem. Most people had never heard about it. Most doctors do not mention it when they recommend sinus rinsing. The warning exists. It is buried in a paragraph on a Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website that nobody reads until someone they love is already dying. It is not safe, not for this. You can drink contaminated water and nothing happens. Your stomach acid destroys the amoeba. But the distance between the inside of your nose and the base of your frontal lobe is less than 3 inches. No filter, no wall, no protection, just a nerve and a membrane. If you use a nasal irrigation device, check the water. Today, not tomorrow. If you are filling it from the tap, stop. If someone you love does it, tell them tonight. And if you develop a sudden severe headache days after using tap water in your nose, go to the emergency room. Do not wait. Do not take ibuprofen. Do not assume it is a sinus infection. Say the words. I need to rule out primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. I used unsterilized water in a nasal irrigation device. They will not think of it. You have to. Gene Hollis drives the RV alone now. He drained the tank the day after the funeral, replaced every hose, bleached every pipe with his own hands. He keeps a case of distilled water in the cabinet above the sink where her squeeze bottle used to sit. He threw the bottle away the night she died. He could not look at it. Their daughter asked if he wanted to sell the RV. Come home to Waco. Stop driving. She loved the road, he said. I am not stopping just because I am driving alone. But Gene does not sleep well anymore. He told his daughter once, late at night on the phone, the thing that keeps him up. I asked her every morning to use distilled water, every single morning. And every morning she laughed at me. And I let it go. I should not have let it go. I should have bought the water myself and put it next to the sink and thrown the tap water out. I knew something was wrong with those pipes. I knew it when we bought this thing. And I did not push hard enough. His daughter told him it was not his fault. Gene did not answer. Every morning he passes that sink. Every morning he sees the empty space where the bottle sat. And he hears her voice. It is just water, Gene. Relax. It was not just water. It was never just water. This is BioCase. Check your water. I will see you in the next case.